Hello everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and today we're going to be working on our next project. We're going to start working on our next project. I'm calling this Badgerstein 3D. Um, this is going to be a first-person shooter. It's going to be all indoors, so it's going to be an indoor first-person shooter. And today we're going to actually start creating the level. We're going to talk about level design and how to use a couple of very simple things that we can throw together really quickly to make an awesome looking level. All right, so I guess the best thing to do is just to get right into it. Now, some of you might be thinking, hey, why don't we lay a plane down for this floor and get started? And that's a good instinct, but actually we're going to use a block. I'm going to create a new 3D object, a new cube, and there she is right there. There's my cube. And I am going to, why is this? Okay. Anyway, there's my cube, and I'm going to set this at, I'm going to zero this out so it's where I want it to be. There we go. All right, now this cube is going to be basically my floor, right? So this is a very small floor. I definitely want it to be bigger, so I will scale it up on the X to 10, and on the Y, nope, not the Y, sorry, on the Z to 10 as well. So we have this nice floor that we can play around with. Okay, super easy. Now, before we start putting in any walls, we want to do something kind of important. So this whole level needs to snap together perfectly. If we have any lines in between our wall sections, it's going to be really gross looking. You'll be able to see through it, and it'll look kind of glitchy. So we need to make sure that these fit perfectly together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Edit. Here we go. And let's see, is it in project settings? Snap settings, there we go. Now yours might be in a different spot if you're using a different version of Unity than I am, but mine was right in there. So now I have my snap settings. Now snap settings, what this means is, I'm going to create another cube. Let's duplicate this guy. So now I have another cube. And if you notice, if I grab this and start moving it, look at my z-axis movement, right? I'm moving by, decimal points, okay? Which is fine, but it's going to be really difficult to make all of our sections line up properly if we're using decimal points to move everything. So we need to go into our snap settings and change the snap settings to something that we're comfortable with. We'll go with 1 for now. And now if I hold Control and then start dragging, notice that I'm not dragging in a smooth, I'm not dragging in, it's not smooth at all. It's kind of janky. And if you look at my Z-axis position value, it's going up in increments of 1. It's going up and down in increments of 1. This is going to allow us to snap our things together properly. Okay. Now I'm actually going to set my, let's see, we'll put this back to 0. And I'm going to change my snap settings for this project to 0.5. 0.5 on the X, 0.5 on the Y, and 0.5 on the Z. Okay, and then I'm going to change this cube. Let's change it to 5 and 5. And actually, we'll make the Y 5 as well. Okay. And then I'm going to hold Control and pull up until it snaps into place. Now, if I zoom in here, we can see that there's no gap between my floor and my cube. That's why snap settings are really important. Okay, perfect. So now I have that guy, he's where he needs to be. I'm actually going to rename these, so let's rename this to floor. And I will rename this to wall. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to snap my wall over into the corner here. So that I have my wall right there. Actually, I'm going to bring it in here. There's no need for it to be. Let's bring it all the way there. There we go. So now I have a cool wall section, and it's right up there flush with the edge. Now, there's a little bit of hangover, and that's fine. We can play around with that if we want. We can butt it right up against the edge of the floor if we want. That's okay too. And snap settings allow us to do that so that it's seamless. All right. So now I have one section of wall and I have one section of floor. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring in some textures now so that we can make this look a little bit better. So I'm going to take a look. Oh, I don't want Oxenfree. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a look here at this Badgerstein 3D assets folder. I'm going to see what we have in here for us to play with. So we have a ground texture, we have a wall texture, and we have a second wall texture, a blue wall. And we have some doors, which we're going to play with next, next video probably. So I'm going to bring all of these in though. Let's go ahead and copy these. Copy. Go back over, and I will paste them in. That's not how it works. Why did I try to do it that way? I'll drag them in here. There we go. Now I have my textures in here. And I'm going to create a couple of folders. One, I'm going to create let's create a folder. I'm going to create a textures folder. And then I'm also going to create a materials folder. Nope, I didn't want to create a new material. I wanted to create a materials folder. Okay, create a folder. All right, so now I have a textures folder and a materials folder. I'm going to drag my textures into my textures folder just so I can keep things organized. All right, so let's do the ground first. So with this ground, what I could do is I could literally just drag this right into the scene and drop it right onto that cube. And if you notice, when I did that, it created a commiserate material for my ground itself, right? When I dragged that texture on, it created a material for that 3D object, and it applied that material. So if I wanted to make changes to this material, I can select the material here and go over and start making changes. I can change it to albedo. I can do all kinds of stuff. I can change the tiling. Let's change the tiling to like 10 by 10. Is that a little better? Yeah, that's a little better. That looks nice. Maybe 5 by 5. Let's try that. See if that's, yeah, it's a little nice. Okay, we'll do 5 by 5. I'm also going to create a normal map for this ground. So I'm going to duplicate my ground here. So let's, I guess we'll do it with this. So Control D to duplicate. And then I'm going to rename this. Well, rename this to ground 001 underscore normal. Okay. And then I'm going to change this texture over here from texture type default to normal map and hit apply. And now when I go over to this material, I have this option for normal map. I can drag this and drop it right into normal map. And now it makes it look a little bit different. There's more depth to it. I can change the metallic property of my ground. I can change the smoothness, drop the smoothness down. I can do all kinds of cool stuff. But now my normal map will react better with lighting, and it looks like it has some depth. Okay, perfect. All right, let's do the same thing with the wall texture. I'm going to go ahead while I'm in here. I will duplicate the wall first. And then I will rename that duplicate. Oh, why do I keep trying to double click? Wall. We'll call this 001 underscore normal. Change this to a normal map and apply. And then we're going to drag our wall onto this wall section. And in our wall text or material that was just created, we will bring in our wall normal. So now notice it made some changes there. And we're going to change it to, actually, let's go back to our normal textures. I want to create these from grayscale so that we get a better looking. There we go. That's better. Okay, that looks better. Now that makes it look kind of like a comic book, like cartoonish looking wall texture, but I actually like it because it's going to work well with our lighting. And we can even play around more with our stuff here. We can increase the metallic. We can lower the smoothness, increase the smoothness, do what we want to do, and play around with the tiling and whatnot. I'm going to leave all of that alone for right now, because now we have basically the building blocks of this room. So I can take this wall now, I can duplicate the wall, and using my snap settings by holding Control, I can snap this wall in place. And if we look here, let me rotate here. If we look, there's literally no seam between the two walls. The reason why is because we're using a texture that is built so that it can be seamless. It's called a seamless texture. So there's no seam there. And we can literally just keep doing this. We can duplicate. Oh, okay. Now notice, let me click out of here. Notice there is kind of a seam now on this. So what we could do here is we can put another wall section, duplicate, put another wall section back there just to make the seam a little bit easier or harder to notice. All right. And then duplicate, bring this guy around as well. Okay, perfect. So now we have a cool looking corner there. And I want to make this wall an accent wall. So instead of using this first wall texture, I'm going to use the blue wall texture here. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to duplicate it. Hold on. Duplicate. And I'm going to create a normal map. So, oh, wall 002 underscore normal. All right. I'm going to change this to a normal map. Hit apply. And then I'm going to drag this wall texture, excuse me, onto that guy right there. And in the new material that we just created, I'm going to drag my wall normal, my wall to normal. I'm going to change some settings so it looks nice, so it looks good. And now we have kind of a problem. So you see how this doesn't really match up with the other texture very well, right? Well, this is still a seamless texture. It just needs to be rotated, right? So what I can do is I can rotate this on, let's see, is that the y-axis? Nope. It would be, let's see, is it the x-axis? There it is. So now I've rotated it on the x-axis, and now notice how those textures line up perfectly, right? So I can actually do the same over here, drag this right there, rotate this 90, and now I have a seamless wall there. And it matches up perfectly with this side. Okay. At that point, I mean, we're basically done. I mean, you can expand this out. You can just duplicate this floor section and bring it where you want it to go. We can grab both of these at the same time by holding Shift and clicking. And then, oh, I forgot to duplicate. Control D to duplicate, and then hold our Control. Okay, so now we can have a much bigger room to play with. We can take these three sections. We'll take this wall and Shift click to that wall. Oh, Control click so I can get all the walls. Here we go. Duplicate and then move these down. Make sure they match up seamlessly, and they do. Perfect. And I can just keep expanding and keep making a cool level. The last thing I want to do, actually, there's a couple more things I want to do. Let's duplicate our floors down here. So I'm going to hold Control and click all of them. Control D to duplicate, hold Control and bring them up. so that they act as a ceiling. Let me fly in here real quick and make sure they're where I want them to be, and they are. I just got lucky with the placement there. Okay, so now I have my ceiling here, and I might actually want to move my... I can see that there's light coming through. If you look there, there's light coming through. Even though it's supposed to be seamless, there's a tiny bit of a gap, so you can move or you can play around with the placement. But I'm not really that worried about it right now. What I want to do is I want to show you how to bring more light into this, right? So if I go to create light, I want what's called a directional light. The directional light is going to be, where is it? Let's set it to 0, 0, 0, and then bring it up over here. Actually, I don't want a directional light. Sorry, that was a mistake. Let's delete that directional light. I want a point light. No, actually, let's do an area light. Area light's better for what we're trying to do. Bring it in here so we can see it. Oop. Now, an area light is going to basically just give off light in a certain area. Is it area light? Which one should we do? Let me play around with some lights and see which one I want. Maybe I was right with the point light. Yeah, we'll use point light for now. There are a lot of different kinds of lights, and you can play around with them. It's just up to you to find the one that you want to use. I like the look of the point light for this, so we're going to use that for now. Now, I have this light right here, and it's kind of suspended in the middle of the air. We'll probably drop in some like light fixtures or something later on, but we can just have our lights floating for now. We can change the range here. We can make the light brighter so it reaches a farther range. We can change the color of the light. We can make it like a cool red light or a blue light if we want, whatever we want to do. We can change the intensity so it's way, way more intense. We can change the indirect multiplier, which doesn't seem to be making any changes whatsoever. But it's going to talk, that is going to allow for more dynamic shadows and stuff. We have no shadows. I'm going to set it to maybe soft shadows. I don't know, whatever. But there's all kinds of things you can play around with here. Just play around with the light and see if you can come up with a cool looking, interesting light that looks kind of natural. And so what I want you to do, I'm going to try not to take up too much of your time. What I want you to do is create a level, right? Like a single level of a Wolfenstein 3D style game using these wall sections, using the floor, using the ceiling, and the lights. Now to go from room to room, you're going to want to leave a bit of a gap so that we can get through. Probably just like one wall section for a gap. We'll leave one wall section as a gap for a door. We'll do doors in the next video. Once we have our level all planned out. But make it complicated. Make it something fun to play. Have a pretty decent origin and then have it go through. You can make it maze-like, whatever. You can spend as much time as you want making this really, really cool looking. But I'm going to let you just kind of go crazy with it and see what you come up with. And then, later on in the project, we're going to add some more, cool things to interact with, some weapons to pick up and bad guys to shoot and all that stuff. But for right now, we're going to be planning out the level and making it look cool. I would recommend probably sketching out your level idea on a piece of paper so that you can follow that blueprint as you're building. All right, that's going to be it for me. I'm going to let you get started because I'm sure you're excited to see what you can come up with. I'm excited to see what you come up with, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.